Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hey everyone, Sue here at 1A Auto, and today we're doing front struts on our '07 Mazda 6 sedan. If you need this part or any other part for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. 21mm. I have the vehicle supported and just enough weight on the tire so that it won't turn. I'm going to break the lug nut free. Raise up, support your vehicle. You use jack with jack stands. I have a 2-post lift I'm going to be using. There we go. Now we're ready to take your tire off. I'm going to start spraying down the bolts that I know I need to take out because these are, looks like they've never been removed. So we get the front sway bar link bushing that has to come out top, the wishbone bolt top and bottom, the flex hose bracket, and the ABS mounting bracket. I'm going to start by removing the ABS electrical cord line bracket, only because if I don't want any strain. There's two of them, there's one here and one on the actual knuckle. You don't want any strain on that bolt. You don't want it to, if the knuckle moves, you don't want it to fall forward. So that was a 10mm socket on that one, and this is a 12mm. There we go. I'm going to put that bolt right back in so we know where it goes. Now on the brake flex hose, on the strut tower, it mounts right here, and that is a 12mm socket. Break that free. And I'm going to keep that off because we're going to reuse it for the new strut. So I'm going to break the top of the sway bar link nut off of the strut housing, and that's a 14mm socket. Yep, the stud is moving on the inside, so they make an Allen slot, so I'm going to get my Allen socket and a wrench. So the setup I have here is I have my 14mm wrench holding that nut, and the center hole for that sway bar link is a 5mm. I'm going to see if I can turn this turn this wheel just a hair. Nice. Now I can get more of a center angle. I'm going to tap it in because it's kind of rusty. Now with that there, and holding that, going the opposite way that I'm going to pull down. Okay, got to take a hammer to that, tap that off. Next, we're going to take off the lower wishbone to the lower control arm bolt. It's a 15mm socket. You don't need to hold a wrench on this side because it has that metal bracket that stops it. So, and it's a welded nut onto that bracket. Okay, now we're going to pull that bolt out with the damper. So now I'm going to take the wishbone bolt out of the bottom of the strut. It's a 14mm socket. There is no nut on the other side, it just goes straight through. Okay, now after that great little work there, look at that. And there is the bottom wishbone part of the strut. And this bolt, as you can see, the threads, they're still good. I'll still take a wire brush to them before I put them back in. Now let's lower the vehicle so we can take the top mount bolts off and slide the strut out. So here's the top of the strut. The strut mount is inside there. You do not want to loosen this bolt. This nut right here, you never need to loosen it up unless you have a strut spring compressor and you're changing the spring and strut separately. We're doing assemblies here, so you only need to loosen up and take off the 3 mounting bolts. It's a 14mm socket. I'm going to loosen them all, so hopefully I can get them with my hand. Set them up here. Then you're going to reach down below and you're going to grab onto that strut and support it. See how it's, you don't want it to fall out yet. Beautiful. Now I'm going to come over here. Make sure I don't rip it out. You don't want it to fall on the brake line or the ABS cable. And there's your front strut. Here we have the new strut assembly from 1A Auto. It comes with universal mounts for the front flex hose. It's got the indent dimple for the lower strut wishbone. It's got the guide on the top. It comes with a mount and new lock nuts. Complete assembly. If you need this part or any other part for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. Taking the new nuts off the strut mount. That one's on there pretty good. I'm going to place them up here where I can access them. And now I'm going to guide the new strut through, lining it up. I looked at the old strut before I took it out. So I want the bracket on this side and I want the guide that the wishbone is going to go into in the front facing the rotor side, not the engine side. So I'm going to guide this up. I'm going to go up on top and watch the strut come through the top. Take some time, especially when you're doing it by yourself. And I'm going to start the 3 nuts. I'm just going to snug them down. The new nuts are a 13mm socket. I'm not going to tighten them. I just want more thread on them. Then I'm going to raise the vehicle up and reassemble the bottom half. And when the weight of the vehicle is on this strut, I'll tighten those down. Now I'm going to line up the wishbone. Bring it over the the axle. Line it up. Bring it all the way up until you see the indent. See the indent for the bolt? That's where the mounting bolt for the bracket's going to go through. I line it up, and I cleaned my bolt. Got the rust out of there. It has that dead stop. That's where you want to put it. Snug up against there. I'm actually going to take advantage of this now. I'm going to put the wishbone bolt through, because now I have this free movement. I might have to hit that tap it with a hammer. Here we go. Picking that up. That was 15 millimeter. I got the socket, so I'm going to see if I can turn the bolt. Get that nut to start. Let that come up around. Nice. Now I'm going to definitely snug that up. I'm going to thread it all the way through, and before I tighten it, I'm going to make sure I seat that strut right in. So before you put the bottom bolt in the wishbone, you've got to make sure that this is seated in that groove. Not like that, not like that, but flat up against it. And hold it there. And you take your 14 millimeter and snug this down, make sure it doesn't move. Okay. Okay. 15 millimeter socket. Snug that down. Okay, so I'm going to torque down the wishbone bolt that goes through the bottom control arm. That's a 15 millimeter socket, and it is 93 foot-pounds. I'm going to move on up to the top of the wishbone into the bottom strut. That is a 14 millimeter, and that is 38 foot-pounds. That's a 14 millimeter socket, and it's 38 foot-pounds. So I'm going to put the ABS cable back, mounted back to the knuckle. And follow it right over to the body. Mount that there. And I'm going to put the flex hose in through the bracket. Seats flush. Perfect. Now I'm going to get my ratchet and tighten her up. So the front bracket is a 12 millimeter socket. Just bottom it out. Snug it. The flex hose to the strut tower is a 12 millimeter socket. When it bottoms out, I'm going to make sure it's seated correctly because it has a staging to that bracket. Yep, it's nice and flush and it's right in that staging. So it's bottomed out. Give it a nice, once you know it's bottomed, give it a good half turn and 10mm socket, tighten that bracket up. And once again, just snug it. Perfect. Put that one in. Okay, now I can tighten them down. 15mm. And I'm going to put an extension on my Allen so I don't damage the brake line. So the torque on the sway bar link nut is 40 foot-pounds. Top and bottom are the same. Gonna have to use a stubby socket to get in that top one. There we go. Torque to 40 foot-pounds. So before I tighten the top of the strut, I'm going to put the tire on, so it will be 100% seated. .21mm socket. Just going to bottom them out. It's on the ground. I'm going to torque it. The wheel lug nut torque for this car is 87 foot-pounds. The new strut lock nuts for the top of the strut are a 13mm socket. I'm going to snug them down. And the torque is 29.3 foot-pounds for these. Now it's time to torque the lug nuts, 87 foot-pounds in a star pattern. One more time, real quick.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at 1AAuto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.